Chinese police are investigating an unauthorized and highly unusual online dump of documents from a private security contractor linked to China's top policing agency and other parts of its government. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at the Dunkley Report. Chinese police are investigating an unauthorized and highly unusual online dump of documents from a private security contractor linked to China's top policing agency and other parts of its government. It's a trove that reveals and catalogs apparent hacking activity and tools to spy on both Chinese and foreigners. Among the apparent targets of tools provided by the impacted company, iSoon, are ethnicities and dissidents in parts of China that have seen significant anti-government protests like Hong Kong or Xinjiang. The dump of scores of documents late last week and subsequent investigation were confirmed by 2 employees of iSoon, which has ties to the powerful Ministry of Public Security. When Tucker Carlson asked Vladimir Putin about his reasons for invading Ukraine 2 years ago, Putin gave him a lecture on Russian history. The 71-year-old Russian leader spent more than 20 minutes showering baffled Carlson with dates and names going back to the 9th century. Carlson admitted after the interview that a history lecture in response to a straightforward question about one's political motives shocked him. But in Russia, history has become a propaganda tool. Authorities have sought to magnify the country's past victories while glossing over the more sordid chapters of its history. They've rewritten textbooks, funded exhibitions, and suppressed voices that contradicted their narrative. From the earliest days of the Israel-Hamas war, the United States and much of the international community have pressed Israel to allow more humanitarian aid into the Gaza Strip. But as the fighting rages on with no end in sight, the humanitarian catastrophe there has only worsened. United Nations agencies and aid groups say the ongoing hostilities, the Israeli military's refusal to facilitate deliveries, and the breakdown of order inside Gaza make it increasingly difficult to bring vital aid to much of the coastal enclave. Boeing says the head of its 737 jetliner program is leaving the company immediately, paving the way for the aircraft maker to appoint new leadership at the troubled division. Ed Clark had been with Boeing for 18 years. Boeing said Wednesday that Katie Ringgold will succeed him as vice president and general manager of the 737 program and the company's Renton, Washington site. The shakeup comes weeks after the head of the Federal Aviation Administration said that Boeing, under pressure from airlines to produce large numbers of planes, is not paying enough attention to safety. For as long as schools have policed hairstyles as part of their dress codes, some students have seen the rules as attempts to deny their cultural and religious identities. To school administrators, strict dress codes can be tools for promoting uniformity and discipline. In recent years, schools have faced pressure to reconsider their policies. Nowhere have school rules on hair been a bigger flashpoint than in Texas. A trial this week is set to determine whether school administrators can continue punishing a black teenager for refusing to cut his hair. The student, Daryl George, wears his hair in locks tied atop his head. There have been no declarations that journalists are the enemy of the people. But there are signs that President Joe Biden's team is starting to more aggressively and publicly challenge how he is portrayed. Within the past 2 weeks, an administration aide sent an unusual letter to White House correspondents complaining about their coverage of a special counsel's report on Biden's handling of classified documents. Separately, Biden's campaign team criticized how news media outlets spotlighted concerns about the 81-year-old president's fitness to hold office while giving comparatively less attention to comments that faux Donald Trump made about the protection of NATO allies. Judges say WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange won't find out until next month at the earliest. Whether can appeal extradition to the U.S. on spying charges. If he fails, his long legal battle in Britain will have run out of road. 2 high court judges said Wednesday they will take time to consider their verdict. It came after a 2-day hearing in which Assange's lawyers argued he risked a flagrant denial of justice if he is sent to the United States to face espionage charges. Lawyers for the U.S. government said Assange should face charges because he put lives at risk in his bid to solicit, steal, and indiscriminately publish classified government documents. One of the first women who accused a once exalted Jesuit artist of spiritual, psychological, and sexual abuse has gone public. Gloria Branciani appeared at a news conference Wednesday with one of the most prominent Vatican-accredited lawyers in Rome. She detailed the abuses of the Slovene priest, the Reverend Marko Rupnik. She said they included his fondness for three-way sex in the image of the Trinity. If confirmed, that would constitute a grave perversion of Catholic doctrine as to be considered false mysticism. Rupnik's mosaics decorate churches and basilicas around the world. Rupnik has not commented publicly about the allegations, but his art studio has said media reports about the case have been defamatory and unproven. A private U.S. lunar lander is in orbit around the moon, a day before it will attempt to land on the surface. Intuitive Machines spacecraft launched last week and reached the moon Wednesday. On Thursday, flight controllers in Houston will attempt a landing. A smooth touchdown would return the U.S. to the lunar surface for the first time since NASA astronauts closed out the Apollo program in 1972. If successful, it would also become the first private outfit to ace a moon landing. Another U.S. company tried last month, but it never got to the moon because of a fuel leak. Whales sing loud enough that the sound travels through the ocean. But how they do that has been a mystery. A new study says whales have a specialized voice box that isn't seen in other animals. The study was too tiny to be definitive, but experts say the discovery will direct future research into how whales communicate. The research looked at voice boxes from 3 dead, stranded whales. Lab experiments showed the whales use a cushion of fat and tissue to sing. Today's news was reported by the Associated Press. This has been the World News for Thursday, February 22nd, 2024. Thanks again for joining us at the Dunkley Report.